Senator from California.
And that is why we are here again today to face the history of lynching in this country.
I heard, as I was crossing the intersection, I heard empire.
Victims of lynching were dragged out of their homes. They had ropes wrapped around their necks. They were hanged on trees.
The letter, it had a stick figure hanging from a tree with a gun pointing towards it, with the words that said, "Smollett, Jussie, you will die, black." There was no address, but the return address said in big red, like caps, MAGA. Did I make that up too?
And they were motivated by racism.
The use of lynching to inflict racial terror is ugly, disturbing. It is a tragic part of our history, but we know that its legacy does not just live in our history books. Less than 2 weeks ago, an actor and activist was brutally attacked in Chicago. 2 men yelling racial and homophobic epithets.
And I didn't answer. I kept walking, and then I heard empire. So I turned around and I said, "Did you just say to me?" And I see the attacker masked, and he said, "This MAGA country," punches me right in the face.
In the row, hate crimes against Black Americans are on the rise. Hate crimes against Jewish Americans are on the rise. Hate crimes against LGBTQ Americans are on the rise. Muslim Americans are on the rise.
I just want young people, young members of the LGBTQ community, young Black children to know how strong that they are, to know the power that they hold in their little pinky.
Evil peculiar to America, yes, to the United States, must be met somehow, someday.
First, Smollett attempted to gain attention by sending a false letter that relied on racial, homophobic, and political language. When that didn't work, Smollett paid $3,500 to stage this attack and drag Chicago's reputation through the mud in the process. I'm left hanging my head and asking why. Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations?
I kept the rope.
So you had the rope on the entire time?
I mean, it wasn't like wrapped around, but yeah, it was around because I wanted them to see. I wanted them to see what this was.
Victims of lynching were dragged out of their homes. They had ropes wrapped around their necks.
Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations?
Then it became a thing of like, oh, how can you doubt that? Like, how do you not believe that? It's the truth. And then it became a thing of like, oh, it's not necessarily that you don't believe that this is the truth. You don't even want to see the truth.
And last but not least, Jussie Smollett. You don't want to miss out on this cuteness over here. So I'm sorry for those for blocking it. I'll be gone in a second.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before. I think
an actor and activist was brutally attacked in Chicago. 2 men yelling racial and homophobic epithets.
He said, "This MAGA country," punches me right in the face.
you never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
You recently declared Chicago schools a Trump-free zone.
The city of Chicago, yeah. The whole thing.
And President Obama says Emmanuel is the mayor we need.
He's making sure every Chicagoan in every neighborhood gets the fair shot at success that they deserve.
Development in the Jussie Smollett investigation. Chicago police have arrested 2 suspects in the case.
Police say that Smollett actually hired 2 brothers, who are also black, to carry out the scheme. Look, I'm no expert. But if you're going to fake a white supremacist hate crime, hire 2 white guys, okay? This is, I gotta say,
at least 2 white guys. Maybe guys that don't live in Chicago, too.
This is one place where you don't want diversity.
You know, Jussie Smollett is in the news about is he telling the truth or is he not telling the truth? And then here we have this conversation about...
What did you think immediately when you heard that story?
I was very suspicious when I heard that story.
Yeah, Jamie and I, we shut once the cameras were off, we're like, are these off? Fuck that guy, that ain't real. That nobody, it was just too much like a movie.
Police and prosecutors in Chicago laid out their case today against Jussie Smollett, detailing their evidence, day by day, minute by minute.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
Lynching is not a relic of the past. In 2011, 3 men in Brandon, Mississippi, murdered an African-American man. His name is James Craig Anderson. They robbed him, they beat him, and they ran him over with a truck. That was modern-day lynching.
Our campaign is not only about defeating Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in modern American history.
I think the current occupant of the White House is an embarrassment to our country. I think he is a pathological liar every day. I also think he is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, somebody who is gaining cheap political points by trying to pick on minorities, often undocumented immigrants.
That was modern-day lynching.
And then I look down and I see that there's a rope around my neck.
Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations?
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
Do you support reparations for black people?
Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal but still exists and is a barrier to progress.
I also think he is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe.
That was modern day lynching. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the LIFT Act.
And then it became a thing of like, oh, it's not necessarily that you don't believe that this is the truth. You don't even want to see the truth.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
Right now in our nation, we have a problem. I don't know if 73% of your time is spent on white supremacist hate groups.
I noticed the rope around my neck and I started screaming. And I said, there's a rope around my neck.
That was modern day lynching.
I hurt. When Dick Durbin called me, I had tears of rage when I heard about his experience in that meeting. And for you not to feel that hurt and that pain, people plotting. I receive enough death threats to know the reality. Kamala receives enough death threats to know the reality.
The use of lynching to inflict racial terror is ugly, disturbing. It is a tragic part of our history, but we know...
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
An actor, an activist, was brutally attacked in Chicago. 2 men yelling racial and homophobic epithets.
You don't even want to see.
Celebrities rallied behind Smollett when he alleged the MAGA attack. Now, with growing evidence the attack was a hoax, some conservatives have, quote, gleefully seized, unquote, on the news. We've gleefully seized on the news? Yeah, I'm really glad that there weren't racist, crazy Trump supporters hateful enough, weird enough, stupid enough to do something like this. Yeah, I'm glad it didn't really happen. Why wouldn't we be? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you glad it didn't really happen?
Which tweet? What tweet?
About saying that it is a modern day lynching. That
sorry,
yes, Jussie Smollett.
Okay, so I will say this about that case. I think that the facts are still unfolding, and I'm very concerned.
You think about that. Why would you not be gleeful that, okay, this world isn't quite this crazy yet? At least in this particular instance with this particular crime, there weren't people waiting to run into the guy from Empire and call him homophobic names and racial slurs and then beat him and then put a noose around his neck. You want that to have happened? And the thing is, yeah, they do. They did want it to happen.
And that is why we are here again today, to face the history of lynching in this country.
Actually, blacks weren't always Democrats. It's like the plan they did to take the fathers out the home and promote welfare. Does anybody know about that? That's a Democratic plan. Now you got a situation where we need to have a dialogue. And not a diatribe. Because if you want something to change, it's not going to change by saying, fuck that person. Try love. You see, they laughing at me. You heard them, they scream at me. They bully me. They bullied me backstage. They said, don't go out there with that hat on. They bullied me backstage. They bullied me. And then they say, I'm in a sunken place. You want to see the sunken place? Okay, I'm going to listen to y'all now. I'm going to put my Superman cape on. You can't tell me what to do. Some days, I'm not gonna please everybody. Don't have truth, just naked minds. This ain't what they had in mind, but maybe someday. Follow your heart and stop following your mind. That's how we're controlled. That's how we're programmed. If you want the world to move forward, try love. Thank y'all for giving me this platform. I know some of y'all don't agree, but y'all be going at that man neck a lot, and I don't think it's actually that helpful. I think the universe has balance. 90% of news are liberal. 90% of TV, LA, New York, writers, rappers, musicians. So it's easy to make it seem like it's so one-sided. And I felt kind of free. I thought this country said I could be me. I love me too. And I love y'all too, so bring the band back. Bring the band back. If you felt that and you understand that, bring your motherfucking hands up. I feel kind of free.